Welcome guys, in this tutorial we're going through the infamous strict ring muscle up. So let's get straight into it. So if you're working on your strict ring muscle ups, you should have some strong pull-ups down, some strong ring dips, and a really nice strong false grip. The ring muscle up itself is a fantastic exercise to build strength and coordination throughout the upper body. It's going to train muscles like the forearms, the biceps, triceps, pecs, shoulders, so it really is a fantastic exercise to have in your training. What I'm going to do now is show you 3 cues that you have to know in order to perfect your ring muscle up. The first stage of our strict ring muscle up is going to be our false grip pull-up all the way to the chest. Now it's really important here, guys, that you actually have your false grip in place. What is it? It's going to be flexing the wrist as hard as you can, then squeezing the fingers as hard as you can so that your wrist does not slip from the top of the rings. You have to ensure that wrist stays above the rings when you are below the rings. If it doesn't, you're not going to have false grip, guys, and you're not going to be able to form a strict ring muscle up. Okay? So once we have that false grip in place, which again, flexing the wrist and then squeezing the fingers so that the wrist remains on top of the rings, what we're going to work on is going from the bottom position with the rings turned out and then pulling all the way to the chest, keeping the wrist on top of the rings at all times. Now the common mistakes that I see, guys, are, as we mentioned, people losing the false grip position. Okay, so what happens as they're trying to do it, they'll slip out of that false grip, and then by the time they get to the top of the rings, they can't get the chest there and they can't begin to initiate that transition. If you have the false grip in place, it's going to be easier for you to pull to the chest because you're already going to be shortening the lever of your arm, and then by the time you get there, your wrist's already going to be on top, so you can actually be able to actively transition and get yourself into the bottom of that dip position. Awesome, guys, let's now see stage 2. So stage 2 of your muscle up is going to be your transition. So once you've pulled to your chest, what's going to happen, you're going to transition the torso through the rings, keeping the wrists and elbows close to the body the whole time. Now the common mistakes that we see is people don't pull all the way to the chest and they try and transition too early, whether because of impatience or just lacking strength to pull all the way to the chest. What's going to ultimately happen is you're not going to get that transition down. So you need to make sure you pull all the way to the chest and then initiate the transition, keeping the elbows and the wrists close to the body. Finally, let's get our teeth into stage 3. So from the transition, the final part of our muscle up is going to be our dip all the way into our support position, making sure them elbows stay nice and close to the body. So, if you've been practicing ring muscle ups for a little while, you should have pretty strong ring dips. This should be quite an easy task for you. From that transition, in the bottom of the dip position, we're going to keep the elbows close. I'm going to press all the way into our ring turn-out support position. Common mistake that we see is people not turn the rings out. Make sure you turn the rings out so you finish a nice, beautiful rep. On the way down, it's exactly the same. We just keep the movement pattern nice and slow so we're drawing the correct cues. Okay guys, that's the ring muscle up, that's the 3 stages. What we'll do now is we'll put all 3 together. Starting with that false grip pull up, making sure that our false grip is in place and we pull all the way down to the chest. Once we reach the chest, we can then start the transition, keeping the elbows and wrists close to the body. And finally, what we've just done, pressing all the way out into our ring turn-out support position. Let's see it. Stage 1, false grip, making sure the wrists are above the rings. Starting with the rings turned out, we're going to pull all the way to the chest. Once we reach the chest, we can start the transition, keeping the elbows and the wrists nice and close to the body, and then pressing out all the way to your support position. On the way down, exactly the same, get into the bottom of that dip position, keep the elbows and the wrists closed, keep the movement slow, come to the chest, then you can start the descent. Let's see it one more time. So that's what our low ring muscle up progression looks like. Finally, we'll get them rings up nice and high and see what the ring muscle up looks like in action. So first up, I want to be making sure I'm in that false grip position with the wrist on top of the rings and then pulling all the way to the chest. False grip in place, wrists above the rings. From here, pulling all the way to the chest. If I slip out of that false grip, it's going to be really hard to pull to the chest, And even if I do pull to the chest, it's gonna be even harder to then get that transition down. From there, guys, let's look at the transition, stage 2. So once I've pulled to the chest in the false grip, I can then start transitioning the torso through the rings, keeping the elbows close to the body. What I don't want to do is try and transition before I've got to the chest. Get all the way to the chest, and then we can start the transition. From there, it's simple. I'm going to press with the elbows close all the way out into our support position. What I don't want to see, not turning out the top. Make sure you turn the rings out at the top of the rep. On the way down, we always go nice and slow to ingrain the correct movement pattern. So there are 3 stages put together. Now let's see it for some reps. So that's your ring muscle up tutorial, guys. Now, if you or your clients are struggling with some plateaus and you feel like you're applying them 3 stages correctly, it's highly likely that you're lacking shoulder extension or shoulder internal rotation. So you'll find in the program loads of exercises to help improve range of motion, strength and stability through shoulder extension and shoulder internal rotation. Give them a try and that'll help you smash through the plateaus and start getting them muscle ups down and ready. Awesome, guys. Thank you for watching.